Canadian Foreign Policy Hour, which is a critical look at Canada's role abroad. Weekly, we're going to just do half an hour again this week because we have a meeting right after, and just been very, very busy with different stuff with this campaign, NDP leadership campaign. To start off with, Canada and Indonesia are working on a free trade agreement that includes investor dispute mechanism, apparently according to the Canadian Center for Policy Alternatives. The uh, the Globe had a piece about Canada asked to weigh in on Dalai Lama reincarnation. So apparently, Canada is being pressed to come out and say that the reincarnation of the Dalai Lama will take place via someone outside of China, because the Dalai Lama has, I guess, decided that, and so that's where the reincarnation will take place, and it's really important for the Canadian government to come out on that. Obviously, this is just all part of the sort of geopolitical kind of issue with China, and I honestly am not sure that that warranted an article in the top paper in the country, but it did. There's a thing. I don't know where I saw this now. It's about a ship named after Petty Officer William Nelson Edward Hall, who is the first Black Canadian and the first Nova Scotian to receive the Victoria Cross. And so this is a Canadian naval vessel titled HMCS William Hall. And so who William Hall was, as this description points out, born in Nova Scotia to formerly enslaved parents, Hall served in the Royal Navy, the British Navy, and was awarded the VC Victoria Cross for his heroism during the 1857 siege of Lucknow in India. HMCS William Hall embodies his legacy of courage, resilience, and service, representing both Canada's naval excellence and a proud chapter of national history. So this is like anti-racism. So we give a former Black Canadian military official. We name a boat after him because he helped the British Empire in a big battle in India in 1857, right? This kind of sort of anti-racism that is about upholding or mythologizing or celebrating the imperial history that Canada was part of. Of course, I don't know much about the siege of Lucknow in India in 1857. I looked at it really quickly, and of course, it was a British colonial endeavor. And that we continue to do that. 160 years later, 70 years later, we still celebrate this sort of contribution to the British Empire. The CBC today had a story. Canadian tech helped U.S. strike alleged Venezuelan drug boat report, and it's a Project Plowshares. L3 Harris provided some of the sensor type equipment on the U.S. I believe it was a drone that hit. They say they can't confirm it, but I think it was two of the four Venezuelan vessels. The imagery suggests that the Canadian company was their parts were part of this, and that's of course important to talk about, and the Canadian components to U.S., Israeli, other military equipment. But the thing I haven't seen mentioned about the Venezuela stuff is that in the late 80s or early 90s, NORAD brought in a war on drugs uh, mandate. And I don't know much. When I read some histories of NORAD, it comes up, and I believe I mentioned it briefly in my military book. I haven't seen much about that. I punched it in quickly yesterday or the day before. I was thinking of posting something. I ultimately ran out of time, but uh, NORAD does this, has this whole like war on drugs kind of surveillance and whatever. Also, we know there are Canadian naval vessels that are in the Caribbean with US vessels that are there explicitly on sort of like drug interdiction kind of operations. I don't know if the Canadians in NORAD assisted the Americans in attacking these Venezuelan vessels. But I do I think it's very likely they did, provided some intelligence gathering, radar, etc., satellite, what NORAD does. And it wouldn't even I say maybe I'd be a little bit surprised, but it wouldn't shock me if the Canadian naval vessel is actually, at least indirectly assisting the American operations. And the American operations look like they might go all the way to a full-on invasion of Venezuela. That does seem like that's actually a plausible scenario. As wild as that sounds, it does seem like that is actually a plausible scenario at the moment. So there should be some discussion of that and the whole NORAD's role, potential role in these U.S. operations. Uh, the Globe, I believe it was, maybe it was the National Post, I can't remember now. They quote that Goldie Hyder, who's the head of the Business Council of Canada, and talking about how Trump actually hasn't been that hard on Canada when it comes to tariffs, and that he could become harder on us, and uh, and that Canada has to consider joining Trump's Golden Dome. So you have the Business Council official demanding that the federal government concede to Trump's bizarre, wild, exceedingly expensive, dangerous so-called Golden Dome militarization of space, which is not, of course, surprising, but it's just important to note how these sort of corporate lobby groups get that much down the path of supporting Canada's deep entanglement with the U.S. Empire. I saw somebody point out that in Trump's big speech to these generals, that he boasted about how he got NATO to increase its military spending target to 5% of GDP, so they could buy more U.S. weapons and sell them to the Ukraine and stuff like that. There's a lot of people who still have this notion that Canada is that we're like, I see this quite regularly still, which I find totally stunning, but that we're putting all this money into the military to protect ourselves from the US. And Trump repeated this business of the 51st state. But yet everything we're seeing from the Canadian military is all about deepening ties with the US, being, more subservient, more aligned with the US. So the notion that building up, and Trump, of course, is calling on Canada to build up its military. So the notion that this is being done in some sort of defensive uh, aim is just a pretty flimsy in terms of having any basis. Shifting gears, we're of course hitting the 2 years of the live stream Holocaust that just continues. The horrors, even when apparently Trump's called for a ceasefire, there's still like another 100 or so people have been killed in the past 48 hours or so. I think it's more than 100. And the horrors just keep going. Obviously, we saw the attacks against all the different vessels in the flotilla, and ongoing expansionism in the West Bank, killings in Lebanon, just aggressiveness all across the region by Israel, and uh, and the Canadian government just continuing even rhetorically in its diplomatic position to take up so much of Israel's justifications, blaming Hamas rather than the apartheid state. A couple of things that I found a little bit interesting. There's a story I saw on CBC. Walk brings Winnipeg's Jewish community together in support of Israeli people, rather than in support of Israel. Just trying to write headlines to justify the unjustifiable, right? Not that 1,000 Winnipeggers, uh, mostly or overwhelmingly from the Jewish community, rallied and marched in support of a live stream Holocaust. No, you don't want to say that. They were there together in support of Israeli people, not Israel, and they weren't just they were flying the flags of the Israeli people, not of the Israeli government or the Israeli state. In this article, if I found a funny quote from that Ben Carr, who's a Liberal MP, and he says Jewish Canadians are being held accountable for the actions of a foreign government. And regardless of how you feel about the Israeli response, it is not acceptable and is anti Semitic to hold Jewish Canadians accountable for things that are taking place thousands of miles away. The guy said that at a rally for Israel. Like, I mean, yes, of course. But if you're going to a rally for Israel, a march for Israel, obviously the people who go to the March for Israel should be criticized and have a complicity in what Israel is doing. Of course, I mean it's just kind of hilarious to see this effort of just exculpation of those who come out and walk in favor of a live stream Holocaust. They can't be criticized because they happen to be Jewish. I guess would be the logic that Carr is putting forward, this Liberal MP. A couple things on a number of different Palestine related things. At McGill, there was a successful, they defeated this effort by the McGill administration to repress, restrict demonstrations on campus designed targeting Palestine activism. The Globe's reporting that a majority of Canadians support Palestinian, recognizing Palestinian state. Another one on the suppression front, Ottawa dropped all these tickets that were $500 tickets to Palestine organizers for using megaphones at protests. I think it more than a year. It took like more than a year. They finally just drop it all, right? So you go through the whole process, do this whole thing, and then a year later you just drop it. And the process is the punishment. Uh, Dahlia Kurtz, I just saw this Rachel Gilmore posted that Dahlia Kurtz, who apparently Rachel Gilmore, who is the former global reporter, online personality, uh, apparently actually she lived next to Dahlia Kurtz sometime in the past, which is kind of interesting. But Dahlia Kurtz is boasting that she's getting people barred from the US. So I guess she's like, I don't know, taking Palestine Solidarity people name and sending them to the, I don't know, to the State Department, to the US Embassy, and saying like, don't let these people into the US, something like that. And apparently well, not apparently, I saw it. She somebody says you should send Rachel Gilmore's name or something like that, and then Dahlia Kurtz responds by saying, I think I might have, or something to that effect. So apparently, so Gilmore's posting this as if Kurtz has gotten her trying to get her barred from the U.S., which wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, this is just stunning to see this 2 years later. I'm of course being sued after they threw out the charges. Kurtz is suing me for defamation, but this is somebody running around like getting people fired left and right, trying to get people to block from going to the U.S. It's just absolutely stunning to see this play out 2 years into this live stream Holocaust. All of these advocates for this criminality are just on the march, being as authoritarian as possible, and are able to get away with some of this. Uh, Now, one final thing, I guess I'll maybe well, I'll be first. So there were huge demonstrations across the country this weekend. Here in Montreal, the Saturday demo was no less than 10,000. I did a walk from the front to the back, possibly 20,000. And I did that quite a ways, over 2 hours into it, and hundreds of people had already left. Maybe even 1,000 people had already left. So it was a very big demo. I was surprised. I thought it was going to be bigger than usual, but I didn't understand it was going to be that big. And I saw stuff across the country. That seems to have been the case. It doesn't seem like any of the NDP MPs or any of the other NDP leadership candidates attended any of these protests, which is pretty remarkable. And it's remarkable because they all go to they all made sure to go to the Draw the Line protests. They all made sure to go to the CUPW picket line, the flight attendants picket line. Many went to the Truth and Reconciliation September 30th, all of which they should go to all those things, of course. But I find it really kind of remarkable how there's all these people who consider themselves like pretty important, like really aggressive, strong Palestine advocates, and they're all like rallying just like so quickly behind Avi Lewis, a whole bunch of them. And like Avi Lewis, I bet I mean, somebody should ask him this, but I bet you he hasn't gone to more than like 3 or 4 demonstrations in 2 years. And it's like there really is a willingness to just take the scraps, the real scrap, like Palestine. It's still that Palestine exception. And even those who are pretty active in the movement are willing to really just take scraps from politicians. And they do it and they justify it, of course, in all kinds of different lenses. They'll say, oh, well, Avi is more electable than Eve is, or Heather has made some important headways in Parliament, and therefore we should support Heather, or this kind of stuff. They'll come up with their different sort of like rationales, and to varying degrees, there's some legitimacy to those rationales. But when he really boils it down to it, it's the Palestine exception, and will accept like scraps from a politician, and package that as like courageous and important, and oh, they're on the front lines or whatever. When they maybe haven't, like they've been in one, two, four, maybe demonstrations over 2 years, and they don't attend. Well, it's always celebrate. They put out a tweet about the attack against the flotilla, but there's no expectation that they'll show up at these dozens of demonstrations all across the country where like 50,000 people marched. Not a single NDP MP seems to have attended. Not a single, not a, none of the other leadership candidates. And yet there's all these people in the Palestine world again who will take this and celebrate it, celebrate them and get behind them for pretty limited return on the from the politician. Now, on that note, I mentioned this derangement syndrome, the Engler derangement syndrome that some of these people have on the left. Now, Matthew Betherens really gave one. This is like a guy who's been an anti-war activist many years. I wrote about his enabling of Israeli crimes, his attack against me for challenging Anagani. I wrote about that about 6 months ago. I won't go into detail about it, but I think he was very offended by that. But this is what he posted on his Facebook. He doesn't mention my name, but he's very obviously referring to me. He says, one individual who says he's running for the NDP recently adopted the slogan of the far right white supremacist convoy, fuck Carney. Again, is the goal here to appeal to a homophobic, quote, working class constituency by using their hateful and inflammatory slogans? By me saying fuck Carney in response to Carney at that point, now it's maybe not actually Carney that did it, but a rogue MP. But at that point, it was presumed that it was the Carney government that had announced the banning of kneecap. So I posted fuck Carney. Now apparently fuck Carney or fuck Trump or fuck you or whatever is apparently like coded right-wing language, and you're like adopting the language of the white supremacist far right white supremacist convoy. I mean, how deluded does someone have to be to say that? I mean, like Matthew Betherens is really like he's really saying if you say fuck Carney, you're therefore a you're. I mean, I don't even know like how do you process that? But he's willing to put that down online, and and again, this is somebody who ostensibly would believe in demilitarization, who would be standing in solidarity with Palestinians, but his hatred towards me is so like all-consuming that he believes that by me saying "fuck Carney" in reaction to banning of kneecap, that I'm trying to appeal to a homophobic white working class constituency. I just honestly just banana stuff. I don't know. Like you can't really like argue with that. It's just kind of wild kind of stuff. Anyways, now on a more positive note, there's a student strike here in Montreal. I think some faculties at Laval and Quebec City as well. I don't know if any of the other universities outside of Montreal, but it's like 80,000 students are going to be on strike, either some today and then some tomorrow, or some both days. So there should be some demonstration. There's going to be a demonstration. I'm going to go to it at Concordia at 1 o'clock tomorrow. So there's still that fire. Like I said, huge demonstrations this week across the country. And 2 years on, there there will be a student strike here, which is great. It's not as big as it should be, but it is obviously a good step. We got about 7 minutes, 8 minutes. If people have any comments and questions, I'll make Laura a uh, co-host, and yeah, I think you can go ahead, Yuri. I think I've unmuted you.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Eve. Well, yeah. So, very quickly, because I know you have another appointment to get to. I'm actually very curious, since you're an NGO critic and quite a radical eco-socialist. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on the legacy of Jane Goodall, and if you have any criticisms over her legacy by any chance, just out of curiosity.
I don't know almost anything about her. I saw some post about her being like this. She's a serious supporter of Israel Zionist, and some of her like uh her stuff, but I honestly don't know almost anything about her. Apologies.
Daniel, can you unmute, please? I actually can't do it. I don't seem to do it on this device, Eve. I don't know if I can't seem to
I
unmute
just
people.
go ahead, Dan.
Hello. Yeah, okay. I can see my computer's somewhat frozen. My question to Eve, what was that article you were talking about with Ben Carr? I'd like to look it up and read it.
It's on CBC. It's let's see, Walk brings Winnipeg's Jewish community together in support of Israeli people. I think it was
Oh,
yesterday or today.
okay, that's all. Thank you very much.
Go
Hey,
ahead.
John.
Salut Yves, ça va?
Ça va bien?
Just wanted to say about like the blinded hatred of Eve. I don't think it's you personally, although maybe you've earned it personally. It's what you represent. It's what you represent is breaking the comfortable mold of faux electoral politics and respect for the other side, and which completely ignores class, and other fundamental issues which you're trying to address with your campaign. So I take that as a compliment.
Okay,
Yeah,
can you go ahead?
I mean, it's obviously you don't like people like smearing you. That's not never nice. But I'm not taking it as, particularly offended by it. It's just it's important to recognize, and it's important to understand where people are at. Like, someone like Matthew Bedrins, as I understand his politics, the logic. I mean, he's representation is very important to him. That's fine. And so having, supporting a woman candidate for the leadership that had, similar like Elia Gazan, I could understand why he'd get behind Elia Gazan over me. but on the surface of it, ostensibly, he's about demilitarization, he's about, Palestine solidarity and stuff like that. And yet his whatever his issue is with me is so extreme that he's like all everything else is out the window, and he's spent like far more time attacking me.
Yeah.
And it's just like, on this question, and I'm seeing with the NDP leadership race, pretty stunning how much of a whole kind of ecosystem of NDP kind of aligned media influencers, this and
The
that,
PMC. Yeah.
who just completely cut. They will not mention me being involved in this race. They just go to such like incredible lengths. And like we dropped that policy platform, which is very, very good. I had actually, quite honestly, very little to do with it. Um, Great work done by this policy committee. Amazing stuff. Very detailed, and there's these people out there who are like, we need a socialist NDP. We need a socialist NDP. And it's like, well, there's a socialist platform that has just been dropped, and you are doing everything. And there's a candidate who's openly socialist, and you're doing everything to ensure that that is
Aussi,
mentioned.
je suis mon candidat qui parle français bien. Tout
Yeah.
l'autre, pas de français. C'est incroyable.
That's the other thing is that the CBC, the National, had the power panel had a whole thing about the CBC. Apparently, I didn't watch it, but a bunch of people emailed me about it, and it was a big thing. And they go on about the lack of French skills for the three main contestants. They don't mention my name,
Well,
and
they've been vetted, yeah.
and yeah, so the people better, but and they so that they go on about the language skills and don't mention my name. Funnily enough, about like 6 weeks ago, I saw Chantal Hébert on the bus, and I spoke to her. So I have a video. I haven't published it, and long story, but I speak to her mostly in French in the video, so she knows I speak French. She knows at that point she knew I was running for the leadership, but she of course was very embarrassed when I started asking her about the CBC's complicity in genocide. So they're totally ghosting on that front as well. The whole language thing. I'm planning on putting out a video in Spanish, kind of like a joking video about the language question, because it's pretty clear to me that my Spanish is better than at least a number of the others, at least one of the other main candidates, French. And yeah, anyways,
Yeah, well,
Time for one
she's the French
last
language
question, last
equivalent.
question here.
last question by Bonnie. Sorry about that, but we'll take one last one by Bonnie. Go ahead, Bonnie. Can you unmute, please? Hmm. I'm on a different device. Somehow I can't do anything here.
I've tried to unmute her a couple of times here, and not working.
Bonnie, are you able to unmute yourself? Hmm.
If there's yeah, I can't do it. So if there's no other questions, then
I was just going to note, Yves, Chantal Hébert is the equivalent of Bob Fife, all-in access mainstream journalist, right? You're going to get no respect there.
No, of course, but it's also, like I said, quite fascinating to see it from much of the supposed left kind of media sphere as well. But I see Bonnie. Quickly, I got about a minute here.
Funny. And I'm sorry, this is Eve. This is way too late. Thank you for what you're doing. I just was curious about your thoughts about how Hamas, I thought they did a great job of managing to respond to the 20-point plan, but I just was curious about your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a play. I'm not convinced that this is the end of the horrors. I'd obviously like to believe that or hope that, but I'm not, I'm not sure I trust what Trump is, if Trump, how serious he is and stuff like that. But yeah, yeah.
Oh, I don't think I wouldn't trust either one of them, but I thought that they did a good job given the circumstances. Norm Finkelstein did a great piece on the Middle East Eye the other day on it at the beginning of an interview. Yeah, they're between a rock and a hard place.
For sure. I have to run. Thank you, everyone. Take care.